This is Critical Nonsense, our high lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks me about metabolizing uncertainty.
Woo! You and I were 7. This is what Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer in Alaska, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
You and I were 17.
Cool.
There's a couple of Maggie Rogers over here.
Wow.
Jess, I had a question for you. So
Cool.
I was having a WhatsApp chat with my friend Gautam Ramdure, and we often, I don't know, our conversations are all over the place. He runs a company called Snowbird out of Singapore, and we just talk about like weird things we're seeing. Maybe a chat version of this show. And
Sounds right.
We've had conversations over the past few years about like, how's the market going? What are you seeing? And just sharing knowledge back and forth. And he was saying the other day, he's like, I just feel something in the air right now. It feels like people have metabolized the uncertainty and just moving on. Like, this is it. This is what we're working with. And we've had other similar conversations in the past. And I had mentioned to him previously, like, there seems to be these moments when there's sort of like a crazy moment, right? Inflationary bubble, COVID, supply crisis. We've had so many changes over the past few years that it feels like, to me, we are just getting, whether societally, as business, as culture, maybe all of the above, faster at metabolizing shifts in sort of the broad environmental dynamics that we exist in, sort of social, political, cultural, economic dynamics. When I say environmental, that, you know, when we look back at 2019, everyone was certain a recession was coming in 2019. Nothing pointed to that. It was just this anticipatory dread. It's been a long time since we had a recession, so here it comes. The recession didn't happen. Instead, COVID happened. And since then, it has just been a huge acceleration of different sort of flash moments, levers being pushed and pulled that create these things. And so my question for you is, how are we processing uncertainty differently?
To use a phrase that you have used before, the idea that we are in this like constant anticipation, white knuckling it, bracing for the thing that we think is going to happen, just feels like such a perfect image of the feeling that I'm sure a lot of people feel right now, of like, just gotta gird myself and get ready for what's about to come because it will rock me.
Yeah.
And I think there's, what's interesting is like, if you are in a constant stage of preparedness for something, but the thing you're preparing for isn't necessarily the thing that comes, is that, I don't know, is that it's because it seems like you're suggesting that might be making us more either flexible or ready, at least for something to come to us, even if it's not the thing we think it will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, what I've observed is, over the changes the past few years, a bunch of these different things, right? Inflationary bubble, the election, the supply crisis in talent created by sort of tech industry hiring up, all of these different dynamics. It feels like we're at the point over the past year and a half, 2 years, where what happens is there's this big moment, sort of, for lack of a better word, crisis moment, right? Even if that's how it's just sort of being presented in the news. And everyone tightens up. But it's for like 6 to 8 weeks. And I've kind of been, I have different signals that we get, or I get individually, that sort of are demonstrations of this. For us, it's sort of like our clients coming in with projects how are they sort of orienting as businesses to these moments that are happening in culture? The inauguration of Trump created this moment where everyone tightened up. It feels like we're becoming basically like Punxsutawney Phil. Like we stick our head out, there's this crisis moment that happens, we go back in our hole for 6 weeks and we come back out and we're like, still here?
Mm-hmm.
No? All right, great.
Yeah.
Like I can deal with this.
Coast
right?
clear?
Like, yeah.
Or, same thing? Okay.
And the sort of like whatever commercial evolution, corporate evolution version of this might be, a bunch of companies have closed over the past 5 years or performed poorly and paid the consequences and had to shift as a result of it. And so to your question of like, are we getting better or faster? It's like, well, maybe the companies that weren't being dynamic in sort of like a climate shift model, but in this case, sort of business policy, economic way, like the climate has shifted. If you can't sort of take that Punxsutawney Phil moment of like crisis, go back in your hole for 6 weeks, figure out what you're going to do, and then come back out and just start operating, you're probably going to get left behind. But it feels like, I guess I don't know, like, is that unique? That sort of speed of metabolism, is it unique to this business? One, I guess, do you believe it? And is it unique to this sort of environment that we're talking about? Or broadly, the amount of change that we've seen over the past few years, is that like infiltrating everywhere in our lives?
Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe first though, we need to unpack what you're thinking is happening in those 6 to 8 weeks. Is that a period of, sounds like resistance, but is something happening in that time that sort of instigates the shift afterwards?
Yeah, it feels like to me, again, anecdotally, like what happens is companies go back in, reorient, and then come like basically, like some of the post-election, there was this tightening up moment because people didn't know one way or another who was going to win the election. It was sort of called as a coin toss basically since August, and that's generally what it worked out to be. And so once we knew who won the election, everyone went back and they're like, okay, he said he's gonna have a bunch of tariffs, and he said this policy and that policy and this policy. We need to figure out how to operate in that environment. So some companies went and said, we're gonna buy all of we're gonna invest immediately in buying all of sort of the necessary like supply line things, like overinvest, buy all of the supply we need for the next year at the beginning of the year, so we're insulated against potential tariffs or things like that, right? Get to reformulate their strategies to approach the market. Once they figured that out, they're like, all right, we'll see if this works, and just sort of come back out. But like you're not allowed the same sort of stuttering hesitation or cautiousness because there's so much happening that you kind of just have to be faster and more reactive. Test the strategy. Does it work? No. Start over,
Mm-hmm. Right. The pressure to do something. And then if that sparks something, then you're like, well, at least I did that. And now I can just wait and see, rather than the more risk averse approach of like, well, we'll see if this has any lasting impacts. Cause like, what if you get left behind?
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have a choice. And so maybe that just makes us able to contend with things more quickly, and maybe is some of what has enabled the sort of like soft landing in theory in the US, where maybe other markets have faced recession, like smaller recessionary windows and things like that, where we up until now had been able to avoid it. But I'm thinking about other things too, right? There's apparently on TikTok right now, there's this discussion of a meme recession, and thinking about this idea in a conversation with my friend Gautam, and what, Taylor Lorenz wrote about the meme recession, it seemed to me like people are just metabolizing trends more quickly in the sort of social media environment. She sort of referenced things in the past, like the chocolate rain video that like slowly eked its way into culture and then like spread through pockets of the internet, and like over time was sort of this meme that like expanded and you could make jokes about and whatever. Whereas today, the like on TikTok, like a meme might last a week, 2 days, like a trend. And so this idea that we're getting faster at metabolizing things as a culture, right? Like we've completely spent a trend in 6 days that would have taken, 2 years or 18 months to spend historically, tells me that there are like other places where the metabolism has gotten faster as well.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the conversation we had during the pandemic about things like, even since about this specific subject of meme metabolism. It's like since then it's probably even faster. It's like what's the least fibrous food there is?
Collagen?
I don't Yeah, I don't know. Something that really just goes right through you. Yeah. I think that makes
Broth.
sense. What I'm raw liquid actually. Um yeah, it is interesting to think of this on the scale of um businesses, institutions, and the what I would imagine would be sort of more the initial conversation around how you react to crisis moments versus sort of the individual lived metabolizing of change, and things happening. Like um institutions might have more to lose of misstepping, or doing the wrong thing, but maybe also now have an equally high sort of risk, or thing to lose over not doing anything. So it's like, well, if you don't do something, it'll be bad, but if you do something, it might also be bad. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to compare that to like an individual where maybe it's all passing by so fast and you don't, it actually encourages you to disengage, because there isn't the same pressure to act for an individual that there might be for some corporate interest.
Yeah, I think like the idea that even if the bad thing happens, that it could be metabolized in 2 days, also is sort of like changes the risk calculus that you may have historically been used to, right?
Well, and it's interesting after several years of you make one wrong move and we will never forgive you and you're dead to us and cancellation and all of that. Like, are we becoming more goldfish than we were 5 years ago? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I think in that same vein, like thinking about recent policy discussions as an example, right? There's been a lot of, I haven't read the book by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, Abundance, but it's been in the ether a lot. They've been doing the book tour. People have been talking about the ideas as sort of like a new way to look at a progressive model of the future, of more building, whatever. Historically, the reason why we have gotten bad at building is both policies that we've established and fear of constituencies being upset, right? And this idea of like NIMBYism as like there are people who will be upset with you if you change zoning laws or you build something near them that they don't like, whatever. Like, is now the moment where we should just be like, fuck it, we know we should do this. Economists are telling us this would sort of course correct the problems that we're contending with as an individual city or whatever it is. And like people will be upset, but they'll probably forget pretty quick. Like, that right now it feels like there is sort of this like fear of fascism and all of those things that is potentially being enabled because people are forgetting so quickly. So like, why not do the good things instead of like changing policy to be able to build more housing or changing policy to enable like greater access to healthcare, whatever it is that have been held back for the wrong reasons.
There is a reason that in all the Jason Bourne movies, like all the exciting like changes and things happen in these big crowds, right? Like that's when you can get unnoticed. And it's kind of scary, but also kind of interesting. This idea of being like, I don't know, like now is your chance to do something that might really upset people if all the attention were on you, but actually there's a zillion other things that could be drawing people's attention, and maybe it will just happen. I mean, there's a lot of power in that. It reminds me of something that I think I've shared with you before, but that there are a few different styles of debate. And one of them in what is called policy debate, there's like a very specific way that people will bring arguments for policy debate. And it's doing this thing called spreading, where you talk a mile a minute. Like, have you ever seen one of those videos of like a debater talking a mile a minute, like pew, 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 like a zillion different facts? It's almost like the premise of the debate is to like spew out as many possible arguments so that your opponent can't possibly pick them all up. So then you win by default because you've just like spewed a bunch of stuff, and it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep track. And it almost feels like we are in a moment like that of like, it is now so fast and so voluminous, the amount to try to keep up with, that sure, this is, I mean, I can't help but think about this in a very negative way of like flying under the radar rather than enacting meaningful change. It feels more like, oh no, what do we do if there's things that could be happening without our notice? Because this is a stealthy time, if that makes sense. It is a ripe environment. It is the crowd where Jason Bourne is hiding to to plot his spy maneuver,
Yeah, if you do a thing that you think is right, that people might be upset with, you have to like, the calculus now of like, we don't want to do a thing that people are upset with, they'll find out about it, is like, is it even a thing that they will be upset with enough to like break through the noise to remember that anyone would even see it? Like, of course, then it's bad if it becomes the subject of a day or the subject of a week or whatever.
Yep.
But that, like, I don't know. I saw something about Edmonton, Alberta, Canada recently, and they basically like just changed all of their like city policies to like orient towards like building denser city, like building better systems and changing zoning, like all of these things. And like over the past 10 years, the city has like radically changed. It's growing at like a 2% clip per year in population. The number of like dense buildings that they built with like good social structures. They're not dealing with like wild sprawl. It's like, wait, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada is doing this and like is growing at this rate? Like, why can't we do that in, I don't know, any tier 1 or tier 2 city in America,
Yeah. Whoa. Wild. I mean, that's more on the exciting side. It's funny because like on its surface, this could seem like, wow, we're growing. We're getting better at forgiving and moving past things. But actually, that's not really what's happening. It's more that we're just not able to keep track of all of the things. And that can maybe lead to both exciting, really unexpected things emerging and other things that maybe will sneak up on us. But wow, this is really taking me for a spin.
Yeah, when you're drinking from a fire hose, you can't swallow all the drops. Like,
They're like, didn't mean to gulp that one, but here we are.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to, I guess, take us to our wrap corner around, are we metabolizing change faster? I don't know. Can you wrap this up?
Yeah, or maybe that we're just opting out of forcibly opting out of metabolizing some things because, to your point about the fire hose, we can't process all of it. And so that means that some change, some uncertainty is just happening to us without being able to process it or have a feeling
Insoluble
about
fiber.
it to begin. That's exactly what it is. Back to the fiber. It's just moving on through for whatever that means. And it is helpful that there is a silver lining in this, knowing some of that might be good for us. It, as scary as the other things are and how impossible it is to keep track of it all, it is relieving to know that some part of that might mean that exciting change in a good way might be coming along soon.
Your lips to God's ears.
Yeah.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Changes. Face the strange.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and Ziggy Stardust, Jess Vander.
You're welcome. We'd also like to thank sound engineer and I was gonna say something about fiber, but then I hated it. So you're just great, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and the Sam Cooke change is gonna come of this team, Les Jacobs.
And thank you to our production crew and stealth operators, Sarah Gilbert, Nora Mestrich, Christy Jensen, Amanda Medina, and Amy Waters.
And as always, thanks, Ellen.
Thanks.
Special thanks, Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
He didn't get to put out a lot. Tragically left us too soon. But man, what he did put out, just all bangers.
Really, actually true. All bangers. Wow.
I think he may have only put out one album, and it is just like no skips.
No, I mean that's the way to do it, right? Is just only churn out the hits. Wow, I need to get into the Sam Cooke oeuvre. Also, special thanks to the Snack That Smiles Back. It is sublime. Like, I don't know what they do to those little things, but it really serves a purpose. Thank you, Goldfish.
To that end, Goldfish Delicious, I saw a clip the other day of some sort of snack podcast, video podcast, where someone was talking about Cheez-Its, and they're like, if you look on the bottom, if you look at the SKU, if there's a K on it, real Cheez-It heads know that the best Cheez-Its are made in Kansas. Whatever is happening in the Cheez-It factory in Kansas, apparently real Cheez-It heads know that those are the Cheez-Its that you need to get.
Wow, today I learned. That is amazing. Is that also the origin of Cheez-Its? Because I believe that actually might be tied to their history. I think Cheez-Its maybe something happened there. In the early 1930s, the Kansas City-based Sunshine Biscuits acquired the Green and Green Company, and with it came the Cheez-It. So thanks, Kansas. You made Cheez-Its happen.
Do you think it's like they're just still running the same equipment from like the 1930s, and it's just like you can't replicate the terroir of Kansas City?
Okay, according to Wikipedia, Cheez-It is a brand of cheese crackers manufactured by Kellanova through its Sunshine Biscuits division. So ideally, through Kansas, baby. Wow.
Yeah, don't get the Iowa Sunshine, but I don't know where the other factories are. But
where do the other factories come from? Now
where I get my Sunshine,
very interested.
I get my Sunshine Biscuits and my barbecue from Kansas City. That's it. I don't know whether I like Kansas City barbecue or not. I have no idea. Some people care. The other production site is Cary, North Carolina. Sorry, Cary, North Carolina, but you are not
You are not apparently up to the task of Kansas.
Get it together, North Carolina. We've been telling you. First, you lose your status as a democracy. Now you can't produce the Sunshine Biscuit. Come on. North Carolina, we believe in you. You have the research triangle. Get them focused on the important problems that matter, like the replicability of the true essence of dried cheddar, crisp, flaky, delicious.
Wait, actually get out of here. Apparently 6 days ago, ABC 11 did a tour of the North Carolina Cheez-It factory. Guys, this is crazy. Whoa, we really need to all watch this later. This is homework. Required listening, folks.
If you want to see some extruded cheese, snipped and baked.
But where are they going wrong? What does Kansas know that we all don't?
It's in the water.
For another time.
It's in the water. Soft water. That's what it is.
Okay.
All right.
Oh my God,
Love
they
you,
can make 14.5 million crackers in an hour? Okay, bye. That's so many cheeses. Okay.